You've been quiet. You've been extremely quiet.
The last
today.
2 episodes.
I've been sitting here for an hour and a half of your silence.
I've just been taking everything all in. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what was it last week or whatever when we had the UC deep conversation?
Yes.
I mean, what was I going to say?
I don't want to talk about that anymore right now. I'm still overwhelmed by that conversation. The fact that you dumped that on my lap.
That was a shocker.
Typically, I get a heads up as to who's like, I got a nice email about you and everything, and nothing at all about our first guest. So I knew something was amiss. Sure enough, it was amiss.
Yeah, I'm taking this information in and what I don't know.
So, are you relatively busy these days?
I am. As I told Casey, I was out here texting somebody right now before this began that unfortunately got popped with a DUI, and I'm going to have to get back to him. I told him it's going to be a little while.
No fun there.
Fun. We no,
I haven't.
don't.
No,
know
sir.
What that's
it'll
like.
be all right. It looked to me like the ingredients were there that it could be a first offense, and they get ARD. And it's going to cost them a lot of money, but they shouldn't have to go to jail if they can successfully make the program.
Sure. Good stuff.
How do you feel about Pennsylvania? The route that they're going with the marijuana, with medical marijuana, and
I think Governor Wolf and Lieutenant Governor Fetterman are on the right track. I think that our DA, Mr. Adams, certainly went a long way. I mean, he essentially decriminalized small amounts in Berks County, so that if you have no other charge except possession of a small amount, and the paraphernalia is only involving the use of marijuana. District Attorney Adams has his program where you can go to a diversionary class. You have to pay some costs, but they're pretty reasonable. And
it's actually held down here.
Yeah, the charges are never put on the
completely.
AOPC. They never go on the computer. They never go on the system. So Mr. Adams is managing to stop the stigma that comes with a marijuana possession charge that can keep people from getting hired. And, of course, that's what Mr. Fetterman is complaining about the most.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
And Mayor Nutter. I mean, Philly was like the first place to do it, and that was many years ago when the mayor and
Harrisburg's now...
a whole bunch of cities, Harrisburg, Wilkes-Barre, I think... I
don't think Lancaster's there yet.
No, I think Erie, Pittsburgh. I mean, there's a bunch, I mean...
I remember being in Philly like 2 or 3 years ago at lunch, and my buddy was with me, and he whips out a joint and fires it up. We're right there on wherever. We were in an old town or old city, whatever you call it, at one of the old bars. And like, Sunday afternoon, just smoking. I said, Jim, what the hell are you doing?
This was indoors.
No, it was outside.
I was going to say, they wouldn't let you smoke.
No.
I've never done that when we've gone to see a comedy show, Helium Comedy Club.
This is like I said, a couple of years ago, and it was like middle of the day. I was like, Jimmy, what are you doing? He's like, they can't yell at me now. I said, what do you mean they can't yell at you? I was I was more worried about you getting arrested. He's like, the cops are not coming over to this restaurant to bust me for smoking.
I'm pretty sure it's still illegal to do it outside.
I think they could still seize it from him, but I don't think they would write him up.
Right. I think at that time it was like whatever X amount of grams for like it was like $100 fine, and they take it from you.
But there is a marijuana paradox that the first offenders, we got a great program for them, and the diversionary program, and they get no record, and so it didn't happen once they pay the fine and go to the class. But what about the guy who's got a prior record or who's been on state parole? If he gets caught with a little bit of marijuana, he could have his parole revoked and go to jail for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Right. The whole thing is
marijuana.
Joke. The whole thing is a.
So that paradox is still out there, and that's really one of the things that Lieutenant Governor Fetterman has been the most upset about.
Right.
Is the people that are getting long sentences for
they're using it
parole.
as a crutch to keep people locked up is what they're doing. It's just one more way.
That's why we call it the paradox. Right. So hopefully there'll be some more reform coming out of Harrisburg. I mean, I know one of the Republicans from Lehigh County was instrumental in the getting a coalition, because the Democrats were always wanted to reform. They needed to get somebody to cross the aisle, and the fellow from Lehigh County just retired, though. but he was instrumental in getting the medical marijuana in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I mean, the medical thing should be a given. I've said it about a dozen times in the show. If one kid is having seizures one day and stops having seizures temporarily because
right. I mean, don't we have a couple 100,000 licenses now?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
have been issued.
It's. I mean, the problem there is there's a couple problems there, in my opinion. The problem there is it's still all cash business because it's still illegal on a federal level.
That's correct.
There's still very little, if any, bank or insurance or any other involvement from any other kind of, institution because of that.
Yeah, I don't know how they get around it in Colorado.
I don't either. But like
Colorado started taking debit cards now.
You can. Here's the thing: you can pay with credit card and debit cards, but it's
debit
set
card
up
only.
at certain dispensaries in Pennsylvania. There's places where you can pay with a card, but it's set up through a third-party vendor, and it charges you like 4.5%. It's crazy.
So it's really like PayPal's paying it.
It's the exact same thing. It's some fictitious bullshit company online, and it's just handling the charge. However, my biggest problem is if it is truly a medical system, why is health insurance not involved? How can one medicine be covered completely by your insurance, but we're saying that this is a medicine and it's curing people or it's curing something?
Well,
and
the FDA has never said
That's
that.
because the federal government still has it listed as
absolutely.
Schedule 1.
Right, right. No, I understand why. I'm just saying, it's great that we're medical and it's great that the state, can say that and I can go to the store and buy it, and that's all fine and good. There's still a litany of problems with the system.
Well, I see the biggest potential problem with driver licensing, and that is that, if someone's taking medical marijuana and they're stopped by the police, they're going to have a pretty high reading of THC if they take a blood test or THC metabolite. And, how are they going to approach this? Are they going to say that he's allowed to drive depending on the reading, the nanograms? I mean, there's no guidelines.
Right, because he could have smoked. Whoever he or she who gets pulled over could have smoked the day before
or the week before. The half-life of marijuana is days, not hours.
Right.
So it's
and then the other issue is it possible that they're going to try when Wolf eventually is done his term, and if Fetterman doesn't get it, although you can see he's going to probably run, but if that doesn't happen, if we get a conservative governor who wants to try to pull back on the reforms, is it possible that they could try to suspend the licenses, the driver license of everybody with a marijuana license? Or
guns, or any of the other things that people so dearly hold on to.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I see the driver license first as the biggest problem. Although I didn't think of the gun permits. Yeah, the gun permit.
That'd be the first and foremost.
Well, normally a possession of marijuana is punishable by no more than a year, even in possession. As long as it's possession, it could be possession of 100 grams, as long as it's not intent to deliver.
Right. Which
Pennsylvania has an unusual statute. It has to be intent to sell marijuana, only marijuana, to show a felony. But if its possession is punishable by no more than a year, so that shouldn't affect your gun permit, but it can, though, because it's in the discretion of the sheriff whether he wants to say
what it says on paper and what they're going to come to say when they come to your house.
It's not a per se prohibition under the rule that says if you've been charged with a crime punishable by 2 years or more.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize they have some theft charge or something. It's relatively small, and they only got 6 months probation, but he could have gotten 2 years probation. So that actually disqualifies that person from owning a gun in Pennsylvania. It's hidden in question 10 on the gun application. It's not very clear.
It's unreal.
And I've seen people get charged. Several people get charged with either third-degree felony or first-degree misdemeanor for falsifying the application for gun permit because they checked the box that they were not charged, and I don't know that they had any criminal intent. They didn't understand that it was the potential to receive 2 years, not what they actually got.
So because their charges were downplayed, they were brought down, and
well, on the sentence was less than the maximum. But if it's a misdemeanor 2 or greater, misdemeanor 1 or any felony, a misdemeanor 3 is punishable by a maximum of a year. So that's not supposed to disqualify you from a gun permit per se on the statute, but a misdemeanor 2 does, because it's punishable by up to 2 years.
See?
So even though you get a plea bargain for 6 months probation or a 1 year probation, it was possible that you could have gotten 2 years. So you pled guilty. So you just now, maybe unknowingly, just took your license to carry away. Pennsylvania.
What is the? Do you know? Maybe you can tell me this. If not me, but if I have a gun permit and I want to go get a medical marijuana card, what are the? Am I allowed to do that, or what?
I don't know.
Because I know someone that
I don't
have the answer to that one.
I know someone that has they have like their license to carry, and they have a lot of guns. They could use a medical marijuana card, but they're worried about going to get it because of their guns. Like they don't know if that's.
It might matter what county they
Does my
live
grandmother
in.
have that many guns?
Berks County.
Yeah, I mean that might not be a. I don't have the answer to that question, Casey. I'm sure it can be found out, but
Sure.
I suspect that there's no statewide rule.
Yeah, I always had questions about that.
Yeah.
Because the person that I'm asking.
Now you've given me a question about that.
I know that there's probably a questionnaire or a question on the FAQ on
Sure. And I can't
on the marijuana website that says if you're a gun owner, but
Sure. I can't imagine that every gun owner in Berks County that also wants medical marijuana isn't going for their card. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. I tend to think that people like guns more than their weed.
yeah, the person that has the guns and who could also really use the medical marijuana card will not go get it because he owns guns.
I believe that. That's I guarantee that's how most of if that's the case. That's why.
They're not taking my guns.
No, I guarantee that's the.
It's like, sleeping or guns?
Nope.
Yeah.
Don't tread on me.
There may already be a regulation in Harrisburg, though, Case.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Next week.
If it were up to Mr. Fetterman, he certainly would have let you keep the
Right.
gun permit.
Is this the end of Wolf? Will this be the end of his?
This
or
is
does
his
he have,
last term.
Oh, it is. So will he have to? Is he eligible to run again or not?
No.
Oh, that's
no,
it.
2-term limit in Pennsylvania.
Okay. So Fetterman, you think Fetterman will be running?
I think he is. I mean, he did the 67 county tour on the marijuana issue, and he claims that all 67 counties, when he had little meetings with town halls, that was 67-0.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. He's been saying the same shit since before he got started. He hasn't ever wavered.
Yeah.
So
as far as
he's
like
been consistent, he's pretty.
As far as
guy.
politicians go, too, he seems like he actually cares about people too. He's not like.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do.
Well, that is what they're supposed to do. But
He made a big jump from mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania, to lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a big move.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even there, he had exposure there. Like I remember, otherwise, how the hell would I have heard from the mayor of Braddock before he was, lieutenant?
Oh yeah, it was a big deal when he
big time.
because he was like a rough. I think he had a rough upbringing and stuff.
Right, Joe the Plumber type story. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely quite a leap to be lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania.
I'm excited to see what he does. If he gets elected and all that stuff. But
Well, I think that boils down to the General Assembly. You need the support of both houses.
right.
Mm-hmm. How do you think the city of Reading has been turning around with the new mayor? The changes that he's been making.
Well, I think the new mayor. I mean, he hasn't had enough time really to implement a whole lot of changes, but so far, I mean, he's seems to be liked, and
He shows up and doesn't walk out of meetings, so that's a plus over the last.
yeah, I mean, he's certainly a colorful guy, and actually was with the school board before. He's been my friend on Facebook for a long time, and I know that I say some prayers for his wife. She's been battling illness, and he's made no secret about it, and I really wish her the best, and I think the mayor really has a good chance. I think it was about time
Yeah.
that we put someone in that was Latino to run the city of Reading.
Absolutely.
Right. It only makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm friends with him on Facebook as well. I mean, he's going out. I mean, he's helping everybody that he can. He's filling potholes the other day in the city of Reading.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape.
You know, I don't think the last guy was out doing any of that type of stuff.
No.
Shaking hands and kissing babies was not his.
The only thing that I ever need to
Well, there's a
know-
few even further back that had more problems. you
Yeah.
know, so it's not been
Some
a good
of them were just
place.
about
Sure.
to start their sentence.
Well, I think the first day that Eddie took over, I mean, didn't he change the whole police force around? He did a lot of stuff.
I think the chief resigned. I think he came up with a new chief and a couple of the assistants. He's changed the lawyer for the city,
Right.
Oh wow!
so he's definitely making some moves there.
Time for a change.
The times they are changing.
But he's just a nice guy.
Yeah, he seems like it, like he is,
likable
yeah.
guy.
He's a friend of the show. I can say that.
Does anybody have anything else? Where can people follow you, Mike?
Well, I think michaelcboland.com is my name. MichaelCboland.com is my website, and there's some summary of what I do there. But like I said, as I've gotten to senior status, I like doing the criminal defense and the estates the most. And part of it is, I'm only a few years away from retirement really at this point, and I wouldn't want to take on a big injury case anymore because they
Suck up
lot
some
of work.
time.
well, and you want to drag them out. I mean, if you want to fight, you can't do it quick.
Yeah.
In those cases.
Well,
And-
even the stuff that I've gone through.
well,
with
even the
cases,
family
it's-
law, as you know, same deal. I mean, so, my involvement there is that, I have to look around and look for a successor, it's called. When you have a solo practice like Perry Mason type, you're supposed to find, try to find a
Looking
law
out over
firm.
those machines one day, buddy, and you can say,
or
I
more
want to
than-
be a lawyer.
More than one lawyer that you could say that when you do eventually someday shut it down, you can say, well, the criminal can go to, and the civil and the states can go to, and that way you have somebody that's there and ready to help everybody out.
Sure.
So it will be a lot of work when the time comes to shut it down. It's sort of like shutting down Hershey Park.
Yeah.
I
Make
look
sure
at the
everything's
number of
covered.
files I have, and it's unbelievable. I mean, it takes up a whole room.
Yeah.
The boxes of files.
It's a lot of stuff.
We just
After all those years, I mean,
my boss. I'm in sales in a construction company, but we have the GM retired this past August after 30 some years doing it. So his office is still untouched. Like the new GM hasn't moved into his office, so there's still files and files and files. And I was looking through stuff the other day. Like he never got rid of anything. But it's amazing how much you accumulate over. I mean, I've only been there for 10 years. I have 3 full filing cabinets full of job files and all kinds of shit. It's like I can't imagine what it's like actually having files on people's lives. Like mine are just garage doors. Like nothing important.
My name's in there, so in that room somewhere.
You're down the hallway.
You mentioned you have children.
I do. I
Any
have-
of them in the law practice?
yes, my son Michael, who's Michael F. I'm Michael C. He is a lawyer in Philly,
Okay.
so he's
What kind
he's
of
doing
law?
he's doing personal injury.
Nice.
So he's done quite well. I know he just got a new Range Rover, and he seems to be having a good time. He went to Pitt Law School, and he was out there for 3 years, and then he came back east.
Nice. More traditional route to becoming a lawyer.
Yeah, I would have
His
liked to have
father.
seen him come in with me, but I mean, he would have had to build up some of his own practice too, and I think it was a good move for him. Although I sort of miss a big guy; he's like 6'6". Going to Philly,
Yeah.
where that's sort of where the action is.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
At least he's not
he
too
doesn't have a
far.
wife or kids, so
Make that money. Yeah. The your relationship with other local attorneys? Like, do you have is it competitive, or is it like? I mean, there's enough defense out there for all of you. Like, enough people.
There's a certain competition when it comes to trying to get the new folks in the door. I mean, I find the clientele to be very loyal, but if you want new files opened, you're going to have a Google presence.
Sure. Yeah, just like anything else, just a business.
It might not hurt to advertise a little, but every website that you can throw something on. I mean,
sure.
Some guys have huge internet presence.
Sure.
And so that's competitive on that side of it. But in terms of if somebody got a case and somebody else didn't, I mean, it doesn't seem like Reading is as backstabby as the bigger cities like Philly.
Right.
Yeah.
I was wondered. I know I have a couple buddies, not buddies. They're certainly older gentlemen, but I always wondered if they I don't know, bid up. Like the way I look at everything is the way I see my own job. Like I bid work to.
Well,
bid,
you're definitely going to have prospective clients that do what we call shopping.
Sure.
And they're going to call several lawyers and see what the price quotations
your
are.
hourly rates.
Yeah, they're going to want to shop. So, it depends what they want.
Yeah.
Really.
There you go.
Speaking about, like you said about competition, me and Kenny Black last night went down to Philadelphia he's never been to Philadelphia. This guy's in his 50s.
And he's from here?
Yeah, from Berks.
Never been to Philadelphia.
Never been to Philadelphia. He always goes to New York. Like, he likes big cities and stuff, but he always goes to New York. I'm like, Kenny, you got to get down to Philadelphia. There's so much history down there in Philadelphia you got to check out. So I took him down to Pat's and Gino's, and their cheesesteaks, they're exactly the same price, $11.
Okay.
So what is
there's no.
It's a flavor competition.
Not even. I don't like either of them. Not that I don't like them. I don't like spending $11 on mostly bread and cheese.
Yeah.
But there's a couple other places I'd rather go to.
Well, sure, but Kenny has never been to Philadelphia,
I
had to take him to Pat's and Gino's.
I get it.
I prefer Gino's.
Did you buy one at each of them?
Yeah. We brought the second one home. We didn't eat them both.
Should have gone to John's Roast Pork.
It was freezing yesterday standing down there.
Yeah.
It was bad. Really cold.
Well,
so
I'm glad that you decided to become an attorney. I'm glad that we've learned that, if nothing else.
I'll be looking out over the Home Depot roof.
I can't imagine somebody not being at Philly, though. I mean,
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, I mean, the concerts, if you drive to the beach, you go through Philly.
Yeah. Ryan's never been on an airplane.
No, I've never been on an airplane.
Yeah. I've only had, a couple handfuls of flights myself. I haven't had that many
Yeah, but you've been on an airplane.
Oh, yeah. I flew to Texas,
if I showed you a
flew
picture
to Florida.
of an airplane, you'd be able to identify it. Ryan would not. He's never seen it.
My one brother is a lawyer, and he lives in Texas.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Galveston.
Galveston, okay. I've been there.
He has his house on stilts.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I've been.
Yeah, they have to down there.
Wow. Didn't they have a really bad...
Katrina.
Yeah.
Wasn't Katrina?
They got hammered with that flood, yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. Well...
Anything else for us, Mike, you want to share?
Well, I did say my website, michaelcboland.com, and also, the areas of practice. I do a lot of traffic defense, DUIs, driving under suspension is getting to really be a problem because they now have a mandatory jail term on your 6th lifetime offense. And in driving under suspension, if it's a DUI suspension, carries a mandatory 60 days in jail for the first offense. So those, I do get quite a few of those cases.
People have had their license suspended 6 times and
driving under suspension.
Drive anyway?
Oh, yeah.
Well, how are they going to get around?
6.
Not fucking drive, man.
Well,
Stop.
I try to,
do you ever?
I try to explain that to them. I'm telling you. Yeah, I do.
Seriously, stop fucking driving. How hard is that? Well, 6 times. But
Jim, you say, isn't there public transportation? I mean, that's what the
but you know that there is. You already know the answers.
Yeah.
Of course there is. They're just an idiot. You're just an idiot.
Well, I mean,
I would not recommend saying that.
We watch that live PD every week, every Friday and Saturday. We watch that live PD, and people are always getting pulled over and without a license, without a driver's license. But
How do you defend that?
It's hard.
Well, it's a continuum because you have driving under suspension, and that's the dreaded 1543 of the Vehicle Code, and you have the driving under suspension DUI related, which is the jail time mandatory right next to it. But you have 1501, which is driving without a license, and sometimes they'll, if they were cooperative with the police, you can plea bargain for a driving without a license, which on a first offense has no action on your suspension.
Okay.
A second offense within 7 years, I think, is a 6-month suspension. So it's still a suspendable offense. And then the least culpable charge of driving without a license is one that most lawyers don't even know about. Section 1511 is failure to exhibit license on demand. And that's just like, $100 fine and costs. You failed, you didn't have it, right? Yeah.
Wow.
He didn't understand
so
the sentence.
There's like a continuum from 1511 to 1501 to 1543.
Because I just think, if you're driving on a suspended license, it's like your license is suspended and you're driving, you're caught, like plain and simple.
Yeah.
But I guess with the different charges, that's what you go through.
And I think when I was a young lawyer, I can remember when they first passed the bill that made it the mandatory jail and driving under suspension DUI related. And if you read the statute, your first offense, you get 60 days and you get 90 days if you have any alcohol in your system, like a 1 beer tolerance. So, it's pretty strict. And then the second offense, you can get like a year, for your second offense, and your third offense, you get 2 to 5 in SCI in state prison.
So it jumps from 90 days to a year.
On a third offense, driving under suspension DUI related is 2 to 5 in SCI, mandatory sentence under the code. And what happened to me down in Ole back in the 20th century is I had a guy charged with that, and the state police called me in the back room and said, we're not comfortable with this. I mean, the penalty's so severe. I mean, we see guys breaking into cars getting probation. And they offered me a driving under suspension, not DUI related, where the guy would lose his license another year but not go to jail as a plea bargain. It was the police that initiated the plea bargain, the state police.
Oh.
But they weren't comfortable with the amount of the penalty.
That's ridiculous. I mean, it's good. It's great
Yeah.
to see it.
Well, now what I've seen happen is that, guys that have prior driving under suspension DUI related, they're not charging them with the third offense 2 to 5 mandatory SCI misdemeanors. They're just charging them over and over with summary driving under suspension DUI related 60 or 90 days, depending on whether they have blood alcohol. So it seems that they're not beefing it up to a much bigger charge that they could. Mm-hmm. Most police are not charging under those really somewhat
overly harsh.
Yeah, they're.
Well, and the thing is, too, somebody gets pulled over, they lose their license, they get a huge fine, they're not working, they can't pay that. So then, and it's just they get pulled over again, and then it just keeps adding up and adding up.
One of the things is that if people get failure to respond to a traffic ticket or something, eventually they're going to get suspended for failure to respond. Okay, if you get driving under suspension and your first one is for failure to respond, that actually can be eliminated. That you wouldn't get any suspension if the only reason for the suspension was a failure to respond that you take care of then right away. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people don't know that there's a loophole built in, and they just plead guilty to driving under suspension and don't pursue the fact that, what the suspension was for. So what PennDOT calls it then is if you get another driving under suspension after that, that's called a true driving under suspension, because then it's for a valid suspension other than failure to respond. But people who just plead guilty on failure to respond driving under suspensions are making a terrible mistake, and they could avoid the additional suspension if they hire an attorney.
You hear that, Ryan?
I hear
No
that.
more driving without their license.
I got mine on me, so that's good.
Tell me how it's. Maybe it isn't common, but it seems to be common in our company. How does a guy go to work for, I don't know, a year, and then one day gets a phone call that says that you've been driving on a suspended license for X amount of days?
You mean and not know it or what?
Like we're
That's
on
just them not caring.
I don't know
you would
how.
think.
Like it's our second or third tech now that has, and like they're otherwise good employees and good guys. Like I just don't. Yeah, I understand that. I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, if Jim lost his license, Jim would be the first person to know that Jim didn't have a license.
Well, as long as you kept your address current with
So,
PennDOT.
and that's just it. If it's going to an older address, or if his address isn't current on his driver's license, that's how it happens.
Well, there's actually a law that says you have to change your address
Yeah.
with PennDOT within 15 days.
That
when
makes
you move.
sense.
So,
for reasons just like this.
yeah, for reasons like that, because, it is part of the government's burden to show that you knew you were under suspension.
Right.
Okay. But it's automatically presumed that you should have known
Because you were in
if
the
you
wrong
moved.
house.
If you moved without giving notice to PennDOT.
Right.
So that requirement is not have to be proven if you moved. So,
Bingo. See,
Yeah.
That's why I asked. I can report that back now.
you definitely want to keep PennDOT with your valid license. And then there's a lot of exceptions to licenses. I mean, a lot of people don't know how to get a probationary license, where if you had a whole slew of offenses that led to a bunch of suspensions, and then you're clean for like 3 years, there is a way that you can get early restoration with a probationary license, and it would let you like drive in the daytime,
Sure.
or drive to work, or it's not the bread and butter license; it's something beyond that, and that's not used very often, very obscure. And the latest animal is the IILL, and that's the ignition interlock limited license, and that's what they're giving now to all the first offense DUI offenders if they don't have some other suspendable offense. Is from day one on a DUI suspension, you can get a breathalyzer in your car and drive.
If
You
can
get an
afford it.
IIL. Well, yeah, they changed the whole procedure in court, where when you have your DUI hearing, whether it be ARD or guilty plea, if it's a first offense, you don't surrender your license at the hearing anymore, which we did for decades. Now you wait until you get your letter from PennDOT, because that gives you enough time to go to the I think 6 or so approved garages in Berks County
I used to install
and install the device and apply for the limited license. It's about $100, and then there is a calibration fee, and they check on it, and stuff. But
Beats the hell out of not having a license, I guess.
well, it makes no sense not to get it,
Right.
because if you're eligible for it,
Unless you like drinking and driving.
you're going to be able to drive with the
In which
ignition
case-
interlock. You got the II, so if you got it, you should get it. But you'd be amazed how many people just don't spend the money and
I'm not amazed.
serve the suspension. Then they get nailed driving under suspension DUI related. They got to go to jail for months,
Yeah,
and they could have been legal.
Mm-hmm.
All they had to do was spend the money and buy the IILL from PennDOT.
Well, I know when I got my DUI and I got my license suspended, I mean, I didn't even think about driving, ever.
no.
No.
Well, you can.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, people do.
That's
though,
a mandatory.
Do you know what I'm
That's
saying?
the 60-day mandatory.
But people do, is what I'm saying. People
they
do
do.
drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the only
But I
thing
never-
stopping you from it is saying that you wouldn't. Like,
Right. I
No,
know.
I
well,
won't
that's what I'm
drive.
saying.
And
But
now the technology, the police have the technology to just take a picture of your license plate,
Yeah.
and they can tell if the registered owner of the vehicle, if they have their license suspended or revoked. Or,
Good times,
Yes.
big brother.
I've
Yeah, that's
seen
what-
someone come in for the calibration one time for that interlock system, and they come in, we go through the calibration and everything. They come and they have. I see a case of beer in the back of the van. It was a van, and they had their kid blow into this thing.
God.
And I'm thinking,
That's why you have kids, Ryan.
but I'm thinking. I said to my boss, I said, Kenny, is this right?
He had to have his child blow into the thing to leave.
he
No.
taught his kid how
Yeah,
to
he
blow it,
taught
because you
his
have to
kid
do
how-
a certain sequence.
Yeah,
Of how you
yeah,
blow.
and these
Blow,
things
stop,
aren't easy.
blow.
Because
Yeah.
we.
Well, how many
Yeah.
are you blowing?
I'm pretty sure I
Well,
had to.
Casey's well versed.
Well, we used to install them, and my boss was the only one who could actually do the calibrations. But we had one in where they showed us how they worked, and then here, try it, mouthpiece, on top of the thing, so we could all learn how they work and how they use them. And we're trying to blow into these things like, and like it's not easy. And this guy's having this. I said, Kenny, don't you tell somebody that we've saw this? Don't you report this? Because that isn't right. To me, I'm thinking this isn't right.
That's definitely a violation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he did. He may have written down something and sent a report or something. I don't know.
As long as the kid was driving, he's fine.
The kid wasn't driving. The kid was probably like 10.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Still better than a drunk driver. Hey, 6 to 1, half dozen the other. What do you want? A drunk kid? Is that what you want? I don't know what you're going for.
The guy was still driving drunk, though.
I mean, I don't think the guy was drunk when he brought the cart.
Oh, no, he only had 1 or 2 beers.
But, I mean,
I think Michael agreed that
the case of beer
drive.
was unopened. I'm sure he was probably, I'm assuming he was going to take it home to drink. But just the fact that he's having this kid, a young kid, who probably can't even have a license.
Maybe it was the kid's beer.
Well, he's old enough to have a license.
He definitely had alcohol in his system if he had his child blow into the thing.
It's a .02 tolerance, so it's a 1 bear tolerance on the device. You can't drink it all. You don't have to be drunk. It'll go off on a 1 beer.
Yeah. And that thing will in your car will.
And you let him drive home like that?
The kid wasn't
Way to
drinking.
go, Ryan. His address will be up top.
And I don't even work there anymore. That was years ago.
www.ryanvu.com.
That was up in Allentown.
Okay. Well,
Laws are completely
never
different.
mind. Yeah, Lehigh County. Never mind. All bets are off. It's like the Wild West up there. Kids starting cars, drinking 40s, driving them home. Who cares? Well,
Allentown actually is more liberal than Reading on DUI.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, are you?
I try to not drink and drive now that I'm in my late 30s. It's
Lebanon is more conservative. You don't want to get a DUI in Lebanon County.
I was driving through a town the other day in Nebraska. I thought, boy, I do not want to get pulled over here. I think it was LaGrange, Nebraska, and there was, I think, a population of like 418 people. The speed limit went
418.
Yeah, the speed limit went from 70 to 30.
Just like
no
that.
hesitate, no brakes, no like
warning,
down to 50,
reduce speed
70
ahead.
to 30. Yeah. I was like, holy shit. Yeah, and I had a Camaro too, so I was
Really?
I was not going slow. I wasn't doing 70.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I wasn't impressed with that car at all, though. I like the Challengers a lot better. Camaros, you feel like you're in like a
Go-kart.
yeah, like you're enclosed.
Your tomb. You're in your tomb.
Ride too low.
Yeah, too low, and it's just like everything like seems to wrap around you. Not a fan.
No, you'd be up top. Like, my big rig.
One other question I had for you. Are you you're mainly in Berks County, but how many states are you allowed to
my
practice in?
license only extends to the perimeter of Pennsylvania.
Okay, so just Pennsylvania.
I can go to any county in Pennsylvania. I think I've been to 12 counties.
Wow.
In my career. I've been all the way up to Union County already on a drug case, and I've taken a lot of stuff in Lehigh County. My cousin practices in Montgomery County, and of course now I have my son in Philadelphia County. I rarely went to Philadelphia County anyway. I would go to Eastern District more, the federal court at 6th Market. But right now the federal cases, I have no active federal case right now.
So just all
But I've been admitted to the federal court since the time I was in the DA's office since 1980s.
Do you have to renew that? Like, is that something you have to like?
No, once you're in on the federal court. Yeah, the state bar is what you have to keep renewing.
Okay.
You know,
How often is that? Every 3 or 5?
well, if you want to be in the bar association, the state and local, it's about $500 or $600 a year, and then you don't have to join the association, but there's a lot of reasons to do so. And then the other fee you have to pay is the disciplinary board charges a fee to police all the attorneys, and the client security fund. So the client security fund you have to contribute to, and then most of the lawyers who steal from their clients are disproportionately in Philadelphia, but the rest of the state is supporting the victims of those guys through the client security fund. So those two things have to be paid every year around the 1st of July, and that's a few $100 as well. So those are the license requirements.
Yeah.
But I also joined the American Bar Association, which is somewhat on the liberal side. It's the national organization.
Do you need to do like continuing credits for that, or is it?
Yes, you do. For the state, you have to do 12 continuing credits every year.
And now, I the only reason I'm even familiar with this is because I handle it on an architectural level,
right,
for my company. So, what is involved in a continuing education course for an attorney?
It could be a whole day. It could be a half a day, and there are a lot of services that offer you seminars. But it could also be a 1-hour seminar, at the Bar Association where they're throwing in lunch for another $20.
That's typically what that's how
that's typically
I'll show up
how,
at an architect's
I go
office
for them.
and give them a lunch.
But then we have one big event, and that's called the Bench Bar Conference in April. And they have seminars all day. So you can get like 6 credits in one day and have lunch with a big group of lawyers and the judges, and you can stay for dinner. It's a whole...
Judges are also mostly attorneys too. I'm assuming
judges at the county level have to be attorneys.
Right.
Judges at magisterial district court don't have to be attorneys.
Same circle though. You're running in the same circles mostly.
Yeah, the judges are somewhat, isolated. They're in their own...
Judgy.
The board of judges is, I always felt this way. The guy's my friend. I know this guy by his first name, and then he gets elected judge, or she. And, I'm not going to call him or her by their first name as much, especially out in public. I'm going to call him judge.
Sure.
To me, that's an elevation.
Right.
Right.
Makes sense. That's what I want to be. I want to be a judge.
We might have an in. You could get over and take over for Uncle Deanie.
There you go. DP, give me a call.
Well, Dean Patton's been judge for quite a while
Quite a
here
while.
in Muhlenberg Township, and before that, he was detective with the Muhlenberg Police for like 25 years.
Yeah.
So, I think Dean knows more people in Muhlenberg Township than anybody. I respected the guy.
We're all familiar with
him. We've known each other since I was about 4 or 5.
He was one of our football coaches.
He's a decent guy.
Yeah, great guy. His family's been on the show.
Good photographer.
Yeah, very good.
So, all right.
Well, guys, thanks for having me.
Mike, thanks for joining
for all the info.
I learned a lot of things today that I wasn't anticipating
Today was
learning.
a very informative day.
I'll say. Telling you, man.
Last week,
Well, no, today, this was good.
And today, yeah.
This second episode was way less gut-wrenching than the first. So, thanks for...
Literally.
Oh, my God. I'm still fucking... Woo! Still got to decompress. So, we're going to put your website above me, probably floating around here a little bit.
And our fans get DUIs out there. Call Mike.
Or other stuff. Please don't drink and drive. Yeah. We're not... Jesus Christ.
But that would both...
If you're drinking and driving out there, guys, give Mike a call.
Yeah, I don't just do DUI.
No,
right.
Yeah, it's...
But that would be
That's how Casey
mainly
knows.
people that are listening.
Casey's friends.
Well, that probably is the crime that's committed the most
I would
in Berks
imagine.
County. Let's face it.
I would assume.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well, that or possession of marijuana, but now that those crimes have been...
Have you seen a decline in people getting popped, like having to come to you for marijuana cases and stuff?
Absolutely. There are a couple of guys that they still wanted to hire me to go with them for the proceeding, but it's designed that the defendant can go in and sign up for the DA's program.
Just a class, right? I mean, that's the
The
way I
version,
read
then
it.
you have so much time. They continue the case, and you have to go to the class, bring back a certification.
Is it like ARD? Is that what it is?
No, it's better than ARD.
Oh, it's better than
they
ARD.
had summary ARD. That was one of DA Adams' first, things that he brought in that we never had before was summary ARD. But this goes beyond summary ARD. Essentially, this stops the case from ever being filed. So that
So
it
it's
doesn't
never
create
on
the
the
stigma
record.
that
Expunged.
Mayor Nutter was so worried
Sure.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's never on. It's
But
not.
it
on
has to
your
be under
record.
30 grams, and it's just to be possession.
So it's over an ounce.
Just over.
Just over.
Yeah.
Just a tad over an ounce.
But I told you the class is held here. You bring whatever you were caught with right here.
If you had 50 grams, you're going to wind up probably having to plead guilty, or if you qualify, get ARD, and go that route. It's going to go into Reading. But as long as it's under the statutory
I mean, if you can't swallow
definition
20
of small
grams,
amount,
28, 30.
by the time the cop gets to the...
Yeah, every DA is every MDJ, the district justice, is participating in DA Adams' marijuana program now. There was a little resistance by a couple, and I won't mention any names, but they all came on board now, so all of them are administering the program throughout Berks County.
Good.
Good.
Very
One
good.
less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
So, the persecution of my brethren. Sorry.
Well, it's probably just the beginning of a trend that we're still.
I think the whole thing's
witnessing.
ludicrous. I think, whatever. It sounds so cliche, but to ruin somebody's life over a plant is just a joke to me. And it's been happening for years and years and years. Obviously, more so to certain ethnicities and classifications, groups of people. It's not fair, and it should go away. And
Well, if you look back in American history in the 1800s, most medicines did have CBD oil as an ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know, and
I mean,
Yeah.
and the other
Liquid
part about it
medication.
is there's also a list of things that we don't even know or have researched enough to know what they're capable of doing, because there's been this, blanket, no, we can't test, no, we can't do any research over it for so long. Now we're starting to say that, there's 600 different terpenes in every different plant. And
well, there
this one does
is a lot
this.
of research now.
Now, right?
Yeah.
No, but that's
There's a
that's
lot.
they drug their feet for so long, like
Yeah, I mean, you're
It's
talking
just-
about it being in medicines back in the 1800s.
right.
That period in between
Right.
then and now, there hasn't been a lot of
50
research
years,
done.
and all of the research has
No.
been done in the last 10 years. So it's good to see that there's some progressive attitudes towards it, outside of Casey just
Why
driving
do you think
around
I'm so healthy?
smoking joints.
That's not a
Never
official
smoke in the
test.
car.
No, just parked, of course. So, all right, Mike. Well, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it. You're
All right.
welcome to come back and share with us some insight and advice next time Casey does something stupid.
All right, thanks again, guys.
All right, man.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
Mike.
much. Anybody else? Anything? No?
Right?
Ryan? No loot crates or anything?
No, not a loot crate. No, maybe a leaf cutter.
It's been emotional.
Goodbye.